Good evening, everybody. Shalom. It's Joel Blackford. This is Blackford Talks Prophecy. And Courtenay is my guest tonight, Courtenay Turner. Now, she just concluded a 2.5 hour session with some of the smartest guys out there. Hey, there she is. Let me add her. So thank you, Courtenay, for adding. Oh, that's her husband. That's not Courtenay. She doesn't have a beard. So anyway, we're going to be talking about technology a little bit, but more the who, the what, the why, the how, in terms of, oh goodness, I think they'll jump back on in a minute here. But basically, what's happening in our world today? Is it technocracy? Is it the overlords of the world? What is causing all the problems? And why are we devolving as a civilization? There are prophecies out there from David Wilkerson, from Dmitry Duduman, that basically Europe is going to fall. First, Germany will fall, according to Wilkerson, then Japan, then the US and the rest of the nations. And Germany's ready to fall, and Trump is pushing them very, very hard. So, and the reason for that is that Trump is trying to impose his tariffs on Germany because it needs to be fair. I mean, let's face it, we're paying the lion's share of NATO, and we're not really getting any benefit out of them. I mean, what is Germany doing to protect Ukraine, say? Nothing, nothing at all. Maybe they throw a couple of tanks their direction, but not much. Okay. England, not much either. They're broke. Both countries are broke. But Germany is the economic driver of Europe. And one of their largest companies, and I'm blanking on the acronym, but they are a plastics company and a manufacturing and a chemical company, BASF. That's it. Let's see if we can find her. No, she's not on yet. But basically, as Germany and plants like BASF are closing, and the auto plants are closing, they're down by 25%, I believe, in their auto manufacturing. What do you do at that point in time? And their cheap oil and gas from Russia is over and done with as of a few years ago. So, that prophecy is still hanging out there, and it's working out quite well, because I laughed at it even 5 years ago, thinking there is no chance that Germany can fall. They're too powerful. They're going to fall. Okay. And the Germans were angry and started World War I. The Germans were angry again and started World War II. They could be in the midst of it for World War III. You never know. So we're trying to get Courtenay on the line. I'll cover in the meantime. I'm going to spend a couple of seconds and kind of introduce her. I don't think she can hear this right now. Let me go ahead and click to the upper monitor. Let me get my mouse to work here. Okay, there we go. And so she was just on this show for the last 2.5 hours. So this was a technocracy roundtable. She was on with Courtenay, of course, Patrick Wood, Aaron Day. Let me make this a little bit larger so you can see it better. Here we go. Okay. So she was on with Patrick Wood. He's a very popular guy. He runs his own technocracy conference. He's on with Haller all the time. By the way, Haller's going to jump on in a couple of weeks with me and do the show. Haller always has something to talk about. There are only a few news hounds out there. Courtenay's claim to fame is that she understands the philosophy of what's going on. And so I would call her an applied philosophy expert. Haller and I are more news hounds. We just sniff out the news and we report the news. And I give my comments and things like that. And I also sniff out prophecy, which makes me different. But Patrick Wood is a guy from technology that's been talking about technology for years. And then Aaron Day did a nice job, and then Craig also. So if you want to, you can go to X and hit this for Courtenay Turner. If you want to go ahead. Oh, there she is again. Okay. Courtenay, hear me at all? I was saying nice things about your show.
Thank you.
There, you're having a little bit of a stutter with the feed, but we'll see if it works out.
Okay. Is it feeding back?
No, it's chopping.
Oh, it's choppy.
But you were only chopping at first. You might be okay now.
Okay. Well, I'll keep talking just to test it.
Yep. There you go. So anyway, this is Courtenay Turner. And so I want you to find out where Courtenay lives. And she's going to laugh at this, hopefully. But anyway, she lives in Nashville. And here's why. Oh, goodness. I'm having problems getting to. There it is. Okay. Slides. Boom. She lives in Nashville. And there you go. Elon's coming to town. And so he's going to be boring underneath Courtenay's house and building his boring tunnels and things like that. So this is news as of July 30th. Elon Musk's plan to build boring company tunnels in Nashville sparks partisan feud. And so, unfortunately, Courtney, you're going to have a neighbor.
Oh boy. I don't know how we
Did
feel about this one.
10
Uh,
mile underground loop in Nashville. So it's going to be a circle. And we're not, I didn't plan this for the show, but there are these weird circles, Courtney, across the world that are popping up. They remind me of the CERN circles, where they run the particles around. Remember the
oh,
CERN? Yeah.
yeah, of course, sure. Yeah,
But
I
now
was
they're in
in.
the sky. We're starting to see these weird sky circular patterns all over the
Oh,
place, like time portals or something like that.
I went to
So
CERN last year.
you did?
It was creepy. It kind of looked a little like a demonic temple. Um,
Yes.
yeah, it
Lord
has.
Shiva and everything like that, the god of destruction.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was also interesting because I had just read the first principles, first values of evolving perennialism, the 42 propositions on cosmoerotic humanism. And in that, it's written by the pseudonym is David Temple. And it's kind of funny why they picked that name. So it's a David
Yeah.
Temple, it's Mark Gaffney, Zach Stein, and Kenneth Wilber. But they
Okay.
chose David Temple because they didn't want any ego involved, which is
Okay.
really funny when you read it because,
It's
like,
all ego.
if they're rewriting the story of the universe. There's nothing egotistical about this, and the whole anthro-ontology of humanity. But yeah, but in it they talk about how they're not so sure the Big Bang is accurate. So they double
Right.
down. They say that there's like 4 Big Bangs and that we have to rewrite the story of the universe. And when I went to CERN, they said the same thing. I was like,
Oh.
oh my gosh. Yeah,
Well,
they
they
said
are
that
trying to
there's,
make us question reality, right? Isn't that part
yeah,
of the
they're
process?
trying to question reality, but they're also trying to tell us that we need to be the authors of reality. That's really what
Oh no.
anthro-ontology is about. Uh,
Oh.
we're the authors. It's essentially all constructivism. Yeah, it's constructivism and self-apotheosis, essentially.
So, just for the fans here, if I describe you as a philosopher first, would that be accurate?
Sure. Yeah, I majored in philosophy. So
Yes, it
okay.
shows.
Pardon?
It shows. I mean, you're
Oh,
brilliant in terms of the philosophy, but I would
yeah.
say that you're an applied philosopher, that you apply it to real life more than I went to college, of course, and I graduated, but my next door neighbor was a philosophy
Okay.
major. And all of his syllogisms, all of his logic tricks were just silly. You apply it to life. You talk about how it relates to what we're relating to, right?
I I try. I think there's no purpose otherwise. Otherwise, it's just basically like masturbatory intellectual games.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. That's the problem. And it
yeah,
was with Bobby.
which can be fun. I mean, I
No,
actually really enjoy it, but I recognize it's not all that productive. So when I talk about philosophy, I only talk about it when it to try and bring it to reality and to try and illuminate why. Sorry for that word, but like illuminate why
no,
it's
it's the correct
relevant.
word.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
people
just
can handle it because
okay.
many philosophers are just wasting your time, and they're using the word that you described. So your case is that you apply it to our lives. You're dealing with philosophy, and like let's pretend there are 20 or 33 guys that run the world. Well, what's the philosophy? Why are they running the world? What
Yes.
are they trying to do? Things like that. So you apply it, right?
Yes, that's essentially what I try to do. I also try to help decipher some of the coded language for people.
Okay.
So, what I always say about philosophers is that you probably only know their name if they were funded. Like, philosophy is not a lucrative industry. So, the only philosophers that we're familiar with are those who were funded, and they were likely funded for propaganda purposes.
Like
So,
Aristotle and Plato. I mean, they were funded.
yeah, they were funded. Yeah, absolutely, and they've been propagated
Sure.
through institutions which have funding, right? So I often try to decipher the language for people because typically it's written in I call it Aesopian language. It's a like a exoteric veneer that is marketed to the masses, and then underneath that is an esoteric message that is coded for the initiates. And I try to help people to weed through that so that they can understand what it is that is really being expressed, because it's not always so obvious. And I think it's very, um, unfortunately, it's very deceptive and it's very useful, in terms of operational success for the oligarchy, right? So they typically, I describe philosophy as like a operating system,
Yep.
and if you're in it's really like a great analogy if you think about Macs, right? Macs are very different than PCs. A lot of
Sure.
people who are super tech savvy prefer PCs because they can construct the operating system. They can, they can customize it, is a good way to put it. And I know my friends who are like very tech savvy, they much prefer working with a PC. What a lot of other people have become, especially in the media, kind of more visual arenas, they much prefer working with Mac, and that's because it's encased. So you have operating systems, but you can't get inside it. Once you're in that operating system, you're locked in that operating system, and that's kind of what a philosophy does. It has a telos. And for those who aren't familiar, telos is just a fancy way of saying purpose, like an end purpose. And so typically, if you are locked into that operating system, that's where it's directed, that's where it's going. And so it's very useful if somebody has an agenda to usher you into to funnel you in through a specific operating system.
Would you teach us two words? You already did kind of with one of them,
Okay.
but ontology and
Yeah.
teleology. So basically, if people, okay, so I'll just describe it this way. I was attending a mega church years ago, and they wanted to see change. So they fired the old pastor that was tremendous, wonderful. And they brought in a new guy, and he wanted to just make money. And
Mm.
so he brought in a seminary professor that's brilliant, like Courtenay, and his job was to teach us ontology and teleology, or whatever, those two words. And
Mhm.
so he wanted to say that you can't trust the Bible because you never know who wrote it and why they wrote it and whatever else. And so he just questioned the foundation of everything, of our reality. And the poor people were just confused. And I got into a fight with the pastor walking out of the building, and I was kicked out.
What?
So yeah, oh, yeah. He had been checking out how much I gave and my attendance, and figured out that I wasn't actually a member.
Was this in was this in a church or a
Yeah, church. Yeah.
church?
It was an
Okay.
ELCA church, which is
Oh,
Evangelical Lutheran, and I was only
okay.
there because I'm okay. I'll brag a little bit. I'm a super tenor. I'm a first tenor, and so I sang, and it was a 100-person choir plus a
Oh,
50-person
wow.
choir. So I sang in both choirs, and so I was really just there for that. And so when they figured out that I wasn't a Lutheran, I mean, I'm a Messianic Jew, so
Okay, yeah.
yeah, so it's kind of hard to
Well,
join.
that's why I asked, because one of the first principles of the Torah of
Yeah,
Judaism
yeah,
is to question everything,
sure.
including even God Himself. They encourage you to ask questions, because that is part of the process of free will and the development of critical thinking, right? So,
Sure.
and I often talk about this with free will versus freedom. I outlined this in my upcoming book, but a lot of people think about freedom, but freedom is actually especially in the occult esoteric messaging, it's typically talking about a collective end. It's much more akin to like a Thelemian kind of Crowleyan concept of do what thou will, or like
Okay, they don't know what Thelema is. They don't know what Crowley is. So,
okay.
Aleister Crowley and the Thelema Society. What's that?
So he had this concept of do what thou wilt, which is
Right.
very Nietzschean, and I'll explain that. So Nietzschean also has a concept of will to power. So
Sure.
he talked about the Ubermensch, which is like the superhuman who would lord over
Superman.
everybody else. Superman, exactly. And he believed that the Superman was somebody who exerted they harness their will to power. So they just out of sheer will, they seized and harnessed power. But when a lot of these occultists talk about freedom, they're talking about it as a collective radical end. And so I'm trying to contrast that with free will, which might be
Mhm.
much more familiar, I'm guessing, to your audience. But free
Sure.
will is not an end, it's a vehicle, it's a conduit for virtue and morality. And so that's why I say, it's a um, that's why I think that, he in the Torah, it's all about asking questions, because that is exercising your free will, and it is how you develop your morality. So of course God wants you to choose him, but he doesn't want you to be forced to, and he doesn't want you to
Yeah.
do it out of ignorance. He wants you to do it because you've pursued, and you've done the questioning, and you've arrived at that is the virtuous path.
You used the term operating systems before, and so
Mhm.
communism is an operating system, and capitalism is an operating system, and Torah is an operating system in terms of how to look at the world
Sure.
and things like that. And so I feel the most comfortable in the Torah system because it's the only system that works, and the other systems all fail miserably. I mean, eventually you're going to have 20 guys or 33 guys running the whole planet, and you're going to be miserable, and it doesn't matter where you do it, in China, Russia, wherever, you become miserable, and they don't like the serfs.
Yes. So you had asked about teleology
Yeah, yeah.
and
Explain that to the people.
yeah, teleology and ontology. So
Yep,
ontology is simply a fancy way of saying the study of existence, of
yep,
being. So what does it mean to be? Often it's we're thinking about humans, and because humans are the ones that ask these questions.
right.
But it's the framing of what it means to be, and this is I think it's very tied to metaphysical. Uh, Metaphysics, right? Because it's your worldview, and you can have an ontology that where your what does it mean for you to be? Now, if you ask me, I would say that I am a being who has been. I've been I don't believe that I created existence. So I
No.
believe that there is a reality that is outside of there's an objective truth.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that I can't create, because I'm made in the image of the creator, right? So I'm a created being, but I'm not the creator. So therefore, there is a reality that exists outside of me, and then I am endowed with inalienable rights as a gift from the creator,
Sure.
and as a byproduct of this free will, which is also a gift from the creator. But this is ontology. And to me, that there are things that we can know about our existence, um, that we share, because there are commonalities, there are universals that we share. But we don't decide, we don't determine them. We're not creating them. We're not manifesting them. There are things that we can abstract through reason and through our experience, through the hybrid of those two, about what it means to exist and what it means to be. So that's ontology, and that's
Okay.
literally the study of those things. And then there's
Which can be a
teleology.
good thing or a bad thing. If you're one of these guys from that particular denomination, they were going in and saying, "You guys trust your Bible, but we're going to tell you that ontologically, you maybe shouldn't trust it. Trust us, not your Bible." If that
And
makes
I
sense.
would say that that's an ontological inversion, right? That's not
Okay.
rooted in ontological truth, ontological reality, because it you don't trust. It's not, somebody else doesn't dictate what reality is, right? We all
Oh,
are
I believe
capable.
you, but these ELCA leaders didn't want that to occur. They wanted people to plant their rear ends in the seats and give lots of money and just be sheeple.
Well, that's disappointing. They might want to reread their Bible. I don't know.
No, they're not going to.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a little unfortunate in my opinion. Um, but yeah, I think that's not commensurate with what the Bible says. I think the Bible explicitly says that in talking about what it is to be, they are saying that we are a byproduct of the creation, and we are part of this creation, and that part of that is that we are endowed with some gifts, right? That we are made
Sure.
in the image, that we are creative beings, we have inalienable rights, and we are endowed with free will. So those are like ontological truths. I think we can all look around. I mean, there are other ontological truths, like we have senses, so we have empirical realities that we can experience. We we have emotions, we feel things. I mean, there's just there are things we can extract, and that we can, because there are universal truths that we can agree upon. what it means to be and what it means to be human. Teleology is about the purpose, so it's goal oriented. So it's to say, like, what is the purpose? Where does this go? Why is this? Why does something exist? What is the teleology? What is the purpose of that existence?
And if your leaders can convince you that they are the arbiters of ontological facts and teleological facts, they can own you, can't they, Courtney?
Yes, they could. And then that is actually really what I am trying to impress upon people at the moment. That's the very crux of why I'm even discussing a lot of these philosophical concepts, because I personally think the free will of humanity is in jeopardy. I think that they are the so-called they are trying to exert a technocratic control over the masses to create a techno feudal society, a neo feudal world that's a transhuman leading to post human world. And part of how they are doing that is by distorting, they're inverting ontology. They're also they have a very specific teleology, which I do
Yes.
not think is shared. It diverges greatly from mine, but I think that because a lot of people are not trained in this kind of philosophical thought, they don't understand how that funnels into technocracy and transhumanism. And this is what I am trying to really impress upon people. I had written an article recently on, and I got into a bit of a, a, t- a tiff with one of the members. I think we are going to have a show and hash it out. But um, there was section 5 of this Epstein article where I talk about some of the presuppositions and the ontological basis for their philosophical worldview,
Right.
and that it leads to technocracy and transhumanism. So, regardless of the intentions, they may be the most wonderful people with the best of intention. The saying goes, "The road to hell was paved with good intention." So, I'm less interested in if these are nice people to have dinner with or if they are well-meaning. That I actually am not very concerned with that. I prefer they be nice people. That's great, and I hope they have great intentions. And I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt that they absolutely do. But the philosophical underpinnings lead themselves to technocracy and transhumanism. And so I did that whole section 5 of that article, and I really tried to break it down in very layman's terms. I use the jargon such as ontology, metaphysics, epistemology, and teleology, but I explained in layman's terms what those things mean and why they lead themselves down this road. Because when you're not rooted in ontological truth, then you essentially become your own god. You become the constructor, the creator of reality. And this is what I'm arguing against, because that's where it leads, if that's the
And
world.
you're writing a book right now. Does it have a title yet?
So yes, I put quite a bit of it up on my Substack. So if anybody wants a preview, I'm a little behind schedule because I've been asked to co-author another book that we're pretty far along on that one. So that one I think will be out first. But this one that I'm in the middle of, that's I'm hoping maybe Octoberish,
Oh,
is on Hegel,
thanks.
and it's called Hegel's Dialectic, a Gnostic Jacob's Ladder, and a Machinery of Control. And the sneak peek preview is available on my Substack, so you can find it there. But I will be
So let's
adding to
explain the dialectic and
that.
what's fighting against each other, just so people will be interested in your book.
Okay. Okay. So what do you want me to
Oh,
explain?
the Hegel's dialectic. You know,
Sure.
where you have the two forces fighting against each other,
Yes. Okay. So Hegel's dialectic, people typically think of it as thesis, antithesis, synthesis. He
right?
actually never used those terms.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, firstly, he wrote in German, so there's that. So he definitely, but even in the translation, it was never thesis, antithesis, synthesis. That was Ficke's interpretation of Kant's dialectic. However, uh, Hegel actually rejected both Kant and Fichte's notion of the dialectic and Plato's, because he said that it was too heady, like intellectual. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing and I'm using the English explanation, but he said that he wanted something that was much more rational. And really, by that, I think what he meant was like a methodology, something that could be mechanistic and systematized. And so he talked about how the dialectic is how the world spirit, the Gewaltgeist, progresses through history towards the rational absolute. And the rational absolute, again, is this radical freedom that's a collective end. And he talks about it being the manifestation of the state, which he likens to God. And he said that that is God. And he talks about how humans actually have no freedom at all without complete subservience to the state. So again, you see where there's this dichotomy between free will and freedom as the is being utilized in this instance. But what the term that he actually used was he said abstract, negative, and concrete. And negative is in German a very interesting word that most closely translates to sublate, but it's called Aufheben. And Aufheben is this very oxymoronic term that means to lift up and preserve while simultaneously canceling and tearing down. And we can see the manifestation from this with Aufheben de Culture, which the Frankfurt School very much codified. They didn't use the term, but they very much codified this notion. And I don't think it needs much translation. Most people have experienced cancel culture today. Certainly over the last few years, this has ramped up quite a bit in our society. But this idea of lifting something up and preserving it while canceling and tearing down. So you hollow it from within. But in my book, I talk about how you have these Aufheben rungs on what I call the Gnostic Jacob's ladder. So, you know, the story of Jacob's ladder from the Bible. And I see this as an inversion where they're using, he always describes it as a spiral. And all of these occultists, the esotericists, they love their spirals. They're always using spiral imagery. And I think it's because it's spiral dynamics as opposed to a plumb line that you could anchor to, which would be realist metaphysics, right? Again, we're going back to ontological truths and, realist metaphysics. And they're subscribing to spiral dynamics, which are very much constructivist, and they're synthetic, and I would argue syncretic. So when you have the abstract, then you go to the Aufheben, and as you move up the rungs, the Aufheben is the rungs on the ladder. As you move up towards the pleroma, if you will, that's what they call it in Gnosticism, the pleroma. And I think that's very much what they're doing. That's what that is about. It's creating this simulacra of reality, but it's through this synthesis of the abstract, negative, and then the concretization of those. And so it ends up being a simulacra. It's not really a full synthesis because you no longer retain the authenticity of either. So, but in very layman's terms, just you get these polarizations, right? So you often have these managed oppositions where these polarities, which look like they're fighting against each other, but teleologically they're oriented at the same end. So
which is the destruction of humanity.
Well, yes, I would argue that seems to be
what they want us to do right now is get into fights against other groups of people.
Yes.
And so they're pushing us. It's Hegel. It's pushing the two people against each other. They fight, they kill themselves, and then the rulers rule. And we're watching it. They're trying to push us. Like today, I'm from Minnesota. I live near Minneapolis, and we had a shooting today. It was horrific, and this person that is transitioning, so to speak, shot 2 or 3 children dead, and then a bunch of other kids in a Catholic church, and so they want us to be angry, and then they want us to fight against each other, and I don't want to fight against anybody,
right?
But they want that.
That's exactly what they want. Because if we can do their bidding for them, all the better, right? If they can have us fighting against each other while they march on with their plans, then they don't have to do the destruction. We can destroy each other for them. And that's exactly what they want. But it's also so that they can march in with their solutions. So typically, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I've been
I-
arguing this quite often. I know I sound like a broken record, but they're currently pushing the two extremes of, the political spectrum, the left and the right, to the furthest ends. And what I keep warning people is there's a lot of talk about this. Very palatable center, right? We're going to get the Elon Musk talked about the
right.
80%
He's working it.
middle. Oh, yes. Well, he's given up on his American party. He's now supporting JD
Well, he's
Vance.
given up on Mars too. He knows. Thiel came to him the other day and said, Mars isn't going to work. You can't get there. It's not physically possible. The human body will decompose by the time you get to Mars, definitely by the time you get back. So,
No
Elon,
kidding.
you need to make it work here. And Elon went, oh, poop, you know?
Um, it's almost like we had a crystal ball on that one. He's
We knew it.
building the technate here. That's the plan. The whole plan for Mars was to build the technate. He's building it here, folks, here.
He is building it here. And let's go back to the slide again. So
Okay.
let's pop this up. And then, unfortunately, I'm going to have to do this so we
Uh-huh.
can jump back in again. So basically, they're building. Okay, so Elon is building in Memphis, just south of you, a huge AI data center.
Right.
But he's putting something underneath the ground, right beneath Courtney's place. And so it's a circular type of a thing so they can get around in the city. So let's pretend that they are able to do Hegel's system and get people to fight against each other. Then the overlords go underground, and Courtney is sitting there above ground saying, I don't want to fight anybody. Well, guess what? And I've been to Nashville enough times. I love Nashville. I love the people. They get along very well. It's a wonderful community. I can see why you moved there. We don't want to fight.
We don't want to fight. But yes, they are trying to push the extremes to their furthest ends. And then they're giving you this narrative that they're in the middle with this very logical, rational, they're the sane people in the middle. But what I implore people to remember is Anthony Giddens, who's a Fabian socialist, wrote a book called Third Way. And he talked about how they would concentrate the radical center. Now, hear that again. I will repeat myself. He did not say the center, the middle, the sane people who are not the joker to the left and the clowns to the right, the people in the middle. That's not what he says. He says the radical center. He's very specific about it. And he goes on to say that the radical center is always left of center and that it has to be for their social and emancipatory goals. So again, here's the telos, right? That's the teleology. What are their goals? Where do they want to end up? Their social and emancipatory goals. So again, we have these notions that come up again, this idea of the social collective and the emancipatory. So the social, it's the collective freedom again. That theme keeps coming up. And that's exactly what they're talking about. So this is, but we're seeing this movement, and we're seeing this with the United Independence movement, where they talk about how they're in the middle, they're these independents, and what I really want people to take a closer look at is that they're using these two extremes, having them fight against each other, so that they can push this third way politics, which is really technocracy.
Right.
Because what is Elon? He's a technocrat. When he started his American Party, who jumped on board immediately? Andrew Yang, an arch technocrat. Who did he consult with to start this American Party? Curtis Yarvin, an arch technocrat. So and I could go through the list of the United Independents who are working on this Operation Phoenix to flood Congress in 2026 for the midterm, and it's all technocracy.
So Elon in Memphis, his computer deal is working, and he's building the big data center. Then Elon is in Nashville with the tunnels, and I'm living in the middle of these two places in Tennessee. So thank you, Vicky, for that comment. Yes, there is a plan between the two. Build the AI, and then in Memphis, and I don't know why Memphis, but that's where it is.
Well, he said it. He said it on an episode with Jordan Peterson, and he said, "Isn't that?" He said, "Yeah, it was the capital of Memphis, capital of Egypt," and and Jordan said, "Oh," and he said, "Yeah." He's like, "Maybe that's where our next God will come from," and then the two of them had themselves a grand old chuckle.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Jordan was so perplexed over that. He couldn't chuckle properly with Elon. He just stuttered and stammered like I'm doing right now. You're
He
right.
did stammer. He was it was pretty funny. They not like the ha ha funny kind, but yeah, it was telling.
Jordan doesn't stammer very often. He's a brilliant man, and he's rehearsed so many things in his mind for a
Yes.
comeback. That time he couldn't come back.
No, he was flummoxed, you might say.
Yes. Yes. So this is interesting, people. Just keep this in mind. There are two ways to eject from the situation. When Hegel's dialectic starts fighting against each other, and they want us fighting against each other, you can go down or you can go up. And so Elon's also got the ability to go up. Peter Thiel does too. I'm blanking on Bezos. Bezos from Amazon. He has in Texas. He has the ability to go down and go up at a moment's notice. And
Yeah.
the one idiot in all of this is Marky Zuckerberg from Facebook. He's going to be on Maui or outside of Maui on a Hawaiian island. He's not going to survive. So you're pretty much done with him. So let's go on to the next thing. So once again, Courtenay will be acting in the Mole People shortly when Elon is digging underneath her place there. You'll be Cynthia Patrick, I assume. And then later on, this is Planet of the Apes. And it's kind of the same thought process where my theory is that we're coming up to a time frame, and it's biblical, it's Isaiah 24, where you're going to have these battles going on. I will describe it as fallen angel battles, and they're also in Revelation 9 and Revelation 12, where they're going to be released. And we're starting to see these weird circles popping up in our skies all across the world. And so at some point in time, the nukes will be underground and they'll survive anything that would be a solar flare or a solar micronova or anything like that. And people, I live in Minnesota, I watch auroras all the time, and I've been watching them my whole life. Well, guess what? They're much worse now than ever before, especially since May of 2023. So basically, they know that we will have problems where the grids will go down, but they'll still have the access to nukes. And also with the Boring Company, you can get your people underground, you can get your electronics underground, and we'll discuss this later on, your robots underground too, to protect against any EMPs that could occur.
And
Nukes,
wasn't the
EMPs. Yeah.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, go.
Wasn't the Boring Company also what he wanted to use to fund CERN's Hydro Collider so we could recreate the Big Bang?
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to
I
create
know.
the Big Bang. I didn't know that Elon was involved with CERN. That's interesting.
Well, he said that, yeah, he wanted to use the Boring Company to fund the Hydro Collider.
So when you hear stories that Elon's Boring Company is boring and not making any money and not doing anything, oh, they're doing stuff, but it's supposed to be
They're busy.
quiet. It's that quiet control that they have. So what's the show on tonight? Well, we're a half an hour into it, and so but Courtney's brilliant, and I want you to see her brilliance in action. She already explained ontological terms and teleological terms, but what I'm getting at is it's AI singularity coming up, and we're the sheeple. They want us dumbed down as sheeple, and they want to defeat humanity. They want to break us down. They don't want us to take the red pill. They want us to take the blue pill and continue on and just go along with their system. What processes would break down our willpower? The mind and the body and the spirit. The mind would be chatbots and thoughtbots. They're already working. Okay, they're using these to
So
confuse. Yeah,
I'm
yeah, go. Yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to because I looked this up. Okay, so there's an
yeah,
article from Business Insider.
yeah.
I don't know if I can find the date. It was uh okay, so this was in 2019.
Yep.
Elon Musk says he talked to CERN about building tunnels for its biggest ever particle collider. So yeah, he said that uh, the director of research lab CERN, Fabiola Giannotti, asked him about collaborating on a new particle collider. The new particle collider is slated to be 4 times the size of the Large Hadron Collider. Musk said that he asked whether the Boring Company could build tunnels for the proposed new collider. Yeah, I thought I remembered that. A CERN spokesman
You need to
confirmed
send me that link. That's amazing.
I
because
will.
we're not only seeing it underground, we're seeing it above in the skies. And I'm sorry I don't have my slides ready to go, but because I'm just getting started on it. And the guy that started it was Mr. MBB333 or something like that. And I laugh him off, but the problem is there's too many examples now of weird circles in the skies, and they look like alien portals. They just do.
Yeah. No, they said CERN spokesman confirmed that Giannotti met Musk in July last year. The project is not yet set in stone, and a spokesman said that the decision would need to be taken in the next few years. And then the article goes on. So I don't know what happened from there, but I knew that he at least voiced interest in this. So, and that
Wow,
this
that's a
confirmed.
big one. Thank you, Courtney. Cool,
You're welcome.
cool. Okay, so the first part is breaking down our minds and making us willing sheeple for whatever they want to plant into our minds. And so they're using chatbots. I call them thought bots. They want
Mm,
to own your thoughts. Okay,
yes.
that's my own term, a Joelism. To confuse and reorder our minds, the devil is in the details.
Right.
Okay, and then the next one is the body. They don't want you to use your bodies anymore. They want to use robots. And so they haven't officially announced it, but we have sources stating that we will see a proliferation of robots by 2027 that would force humanity to physically cede all work and exercise to upgradable AI robots. So whatever robot you're working with can be easily upgraded through AGI, which is general intelligence, to ASI, which is what you were talking about, Courtney, that
Mm,
super, that Ubermensch, that super intelligence.
super
And
intelligence, which they
you
think
know,
will be sentient. I don't believe that, but that's what they're arguing. Yeah.
we'll discuss that. We'll go through the Hebrew a
Okay.
little bit. I don't know. Are you fluent in Hebrew at all?
I'm not. No.
Okay, all right. I'll discuss it with you and then you can
Okay.
cover it. Okay. And then the final thing is spirit. That's the sentience part. And
Yeah.
so 2030 AGI, as I mentioned, that's artificial general intelligence, to ASI, super intelligence, becomes our gods. And really what they're talking about is, and it's the beast from Daniel 7, it's also the beast from Revelation 13 and 17. It is the UN and our governments will be part of this superhuman, this Ubermensch, and we'll become the sheeple and they'll run everything because they'll be the overlords, right, Courtney?
Yep. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what they're. Yeah, they are talking about how they think that AGI will achieve some sort of a sentience, and so they're talking about how that we need to parent it, and they're actually working on a global constitution for this. I have covered it a little
Oh,
bit.
you have. Okay.
Yeah, I did a short, it was like a 30-minute video. I will be doing a much longer one because there's a lot in here. But people can look it up. It's called the Participatory Framework for Creating a Global AGI Constitution. And some of the people involved are Annalise Smithson. She's the founder
Mm,
of Earthwise Center.
okay.
She is also a proponent of this Game B that I've talked quite a bit about. Then there's Ben Gertzel. He's the founder of Singularity Net, and he is also behind robot Hanson Robotics. You know, the Sophia
Okay.
robot, and he's also worked with the UN and the World Economic Forum on AI for good. So working on the AI framework for ethics. And then there's Mariana Bozen, and she is a member of the Club of Rome and the AQAL Capital and AQAL Foundation, which is, of course, this is integralism. Ken Wilber's AQAL, um, yeah, all quadrants, all lines theory of integralism. And then we've got Laura George, who is the founder and director of the Oracle Institute. And this document is incredibly creepy, in my opinion. They talk about how they're going to create this global constitution. It's a participatory framework, but they talk about how the AI, like that, like here are just some of the sections. They talk about like wisdom of consciousness. They do think the AI will achieve sentience, and that we will need to parent it so that we can co-evolve with it to create benevolent AGI. And then they talk about how we might have to become subordinate to the AI ethics because the AI might have a better framework for um, ethics because they'll be better stewards of the planet than humans will.
We
And
don't
so,
need any of that stinking free will anymore.
yeah, that pesky free will, we
Yeah,
won't be needing
pesky.
that one.
Pesky.
Yes. So I'm very concerned about this because that is really where a lot of these things are headed. And it's, of course, under the guise of being for the greater good, for planetary good. But eradicating free will does not seem so good to me.
So just so you're aware too, people, Courtney used to be larger in terms of audience, but she's been kind of deplatformed a few times over the years. 6 times, I hear.
Six, yeah, I'm on my sixth trial on the YouTube channel, and so any support there is greatly appreciated. But I'm thinking that this is going to be like, doubly charmed because they say the third time's a charm, and so sixth time must be double that. So that's what we're going with.
Okay, so let's go to the fun stuff. And yeah, because I have problems growing my audience too.
Yeah.
They know who I am because I had 100,000 viewers in 2 videos years ago, and then suddenly I
Whoa.
went down to zero. So
Ugh.
anyway, Demis Hassabis says AGI could bring radical abundance by solving humanity's core problems, like curing diseases, extending lifespans, discovering advanced energy solutions. So basically, they're saying this is how we can break you down. We'll solve man's problems. We'll give you the ability to, let's see, cheap fusion, starships, 200-year health spans, godlike. That's what Peter Diamandis is saying. Any thoughts about how they're going to break us down, Courtney?
I mean, yeah, I think there's many ways. I think they're doing it right now. I think that I wrote an article called the Algorithmic Oracle, and I am working on formatting that to make it available for hard copy, physical copy to publish. It is a the thesis around it is that, and it goes back further than this, but I started with sensitivity training, which, for those who are not familiar, this was Kurt Lewin's method of essentially brainwashing. Even the National Training Laboratories manual in 1947 did admit that it was brainwashing, and then the CIA admitted it again in 1974. You can find that document. They talk about how they really wanted to test the efficacy of sensitivity training, but that it was too reminiscent of Chinese brainwashing. They could not do that to their military. Uh,
Reminiscent of Chinese brainwashing. Did you just
yeah,
squeeze that quote in there?
I did. Yes, so that is what they said. They did not say Maoist struggle sessions, but that is, I think, what they were alluding to. But my thesis was that they took this technique of sensitivity training, which later became group dynamics, and they merged it with the Rand Corporation's Delphi method. The Delphi method was born out of the Cold War under the auspices that they needed some form of testing in order to test the efficacy of technology on wartime. And they came up with a modality of doing surveys repeatedly without knowing who the leaders were. So essentially, you had change agents, but who were covert. They did not get rid of the change agents; they were just not publicly announced, which in some ways was actually even more effective. And that hybrid is now weaponized through cybernetic algorithms. So, where I'm going, sorry, the long winded way of answering your question, but essentially what I see right now is that another really good resource, and I did put this in that article as well. I talked about the NATO cognitive warfare document. It's actually several documents, but they talk about how they target people on social media using heightened emotionality to get people pitted against each other, and to create these,
Ego.
yes,
Yep.
warring factions, these dialectical operations. But essentially, it's about manufacturing consent. So
Yeah.
people's like the ideas that people have are being created and fomented through these cybernetic algorithmic feedback loops. So they data mine to figure out like what your interests are, what might trigger you, what might make you angry, what might make you passionate, and they do all this data mining, and then they put that back out to trigger you and to create these feedback loops. So they're programming you from all of this data. And it is a way of manufacturing consent, is a way of shaping opinion, and socially engineering the masses. So I would say that's one way, and it's a pretty big way. They're already doing that. We're seeing these people who are experiencing psychosis
Oh
through
yeah.
conversations with their various chatbots.
Yep.
And I'm very concerned about this, not just because of the obvious psychosis that is arising, but I'm also concerned because and nobody's really talking about this component, but there's a Stasi component, right? So the AI isn't just like your friend and your confidant. The AI is connected to a bigger grid, and they can report you. So what happens when they're collecting all this data on you and they decide that, you said some things that don't seem all that stable, or you opened your eyes too wide and you seem really angry, or maybe you're
Right.
exhibiting some schizotypal tendencies, and they report you and have you put into they're now talking about bringing back asylums. And I am not in favor of involuntary asylum at all. I know there are people who could benefit, and it might be necessary in some cases. It's very different if a family intervenes, or loved ones, or if somebody voluntarily brings themselves in and says, I need help and I want to be in a facility. But I am not in favor of it being done by force. If anybody has watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you know
Oh yeah.
that. Right, then you know that if you were sane going into one of those facilities, you will most likely be insane coming out. So I just really don't encourage that. But with
So
these
you're not recommending lobotomies or anything like that, or
no
shock treatment?
lobotomies, no forced
Okay, we've got
drugging,
Courtney on record. No lobotomies. Okay.
no lobotomies, no forced drugging, no forced therapy even. Bad therapy can be worse than no therapy, and in many
Right.
cases it is. And it can do real damage. So no, I'm not in favor of it at all. But I'm really not in favor of having some sort of a AI that could diagnose and then report you. And I think that's even more disturbing than the psychosis we're seeing, because some of these psychosis may not be real. It might be somebody having a bad day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's very concerning, but we are also seeing that it's a feedback loop, right? So the AI is a machine learning apparatus, and so it's getting to know you, it's getting to learn you, and it can then trigger you once it's
It can
calculated the
send
breaking points.
billions of bots against you to trigger you. It
Yeah,
can marshal the bots against you. It
yeah,
can.
they absolutely can. I think they do. I mean, we see it. We experience it all the time. So,
I'm
uh,
starting to see it when I hit a hot post like today with the shooting and things like that. It went hot. It went nuclear. And so I'm starting to see some bots jump in because there's that transition type person involved. And so the people jump in and that pulls the bots with them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're already trying to break people, create, these dialectics, these warring factions, these destabilize people because they're atomizing people. So now why are people turning to these chatbots for friends and for, companionship? They're doing it because they've atomized people. Um, yeah, they've weakened our attention spans, which has neurological ramifications, dopamine deficiency disorders. Yeah, I think I could go on and on. They're breaking us in every way possible, and that's
Yeah.
just talking about the technology. That's not even talking about, all the other types of warfare that they've unleashed on us.
So that's our next slide. So let me finish a couple of sentences here, which
Okay.
is rock down and below. Intriguing. ASI could simulate treaty scenarios, so it could form the United Nations for us, which is part of the BEAST system, predict outcomes, even mediate disputes with unbiased data analysis. Bodies like the UN are exploring AI and governance for enforcement. Think orbital monitoring networks. How do you see ASI evolving to handle interstellar ethics? They're not even talking about global, they're interstellar. So we'll be arguing with the Martians and want to go to war with them, and they'll fix it.
Well, it's probably not gonna be the Martians. It's gonna be like the Arcturians and the
Yeah.
Pleiadians, and yeah, and they're gonna say that the star seeds are gonna save us.
There you go. So there are extra dimensionals.
Yeah,
People have been preaching ET for years. They're just extra dimensionals.
yes. That's
and
right.
they've been around forever.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, I just wanted to show this for a second. I don't want to read the whole thing now because we really don't have the time. But
Okay.
basically,
Okay.
how they want to sell it to us is that it will fix our nature. It'll help our maybe double our agricultural output. We'll have vertical hanging type gardens. They will make our lives better. And so the ASI is for a greener Texas, for a better world. And so this is somebody's his version of our autonomous superintelligence from 2035. And so, yeah, I don't want to read it because it'll take too long. But the bottom line is they're going to sell this as if it ends the world's problems, right?
Course. And I just did a round table. I think you saw at least
Yeah,
some
I
of
saw
it.
parts of it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, we talked about how technology is not the enemy. I mean, technology absolutely can enhance our lives. We are using technology to have this conversation and to be able to share it with people around the world. And what a gift! What a blessing to be able to do that. So I'm very grateful for the advent of technology, for the ingenuity of the brilliant minds that have helped to make these creations and to advance them and to improve upon them. The problem is when they're talking about prioritizing technology over humans, when they talk about prioritizing, the collective ends versus the individual free will. And that's where I have a difficulty with it. That's where I don't support it. So there's absolutely technology that can enhance our lives, that can make things easier, that can make things more efficient. I hesitate to use that word because it's often code for technocracy. They're usually talking about replacing humans rather than
Oh,
enhancing
yeah.
our lives with efficiency. But it can make our lives more efficient, and I support that. But we have to be very cognizant of who's programming the AI. What is the telos? What is the end goal? What do they want to do with it? And what are their first principles? Do they prioritize free will? Do they prioritize humanity 1.0 versus humanity 2.0? Are they looking for the benefit of the greater good or for the individual? And I think, if you're looking at it, I think certainly for this audience, I could speak to it in the biblical framework. If you look at it biblically, I think the fact that we were endowed with this beautiful gift of free will is a testament that God values the individual over the collective,
Oh, he does. Yeah.
right? And so that doesn't mean
The
that he
human
doesn't
soul.
want humanity as a whole to flourish. Of course he does, but he wants to do that through the individual, through the improvement of the individual, and an extension of
Other
that
than
which
on
is
Yom Kippur, then it's the whole corporate. Then everybody's repenting, and then hopefully we're all forgiven. But and Yom Kippur is coming up in about 40
yeah,
days here. So yes, but typically it is the individual from the way the Bible's written. That's the goal to have the individual acknowledge God that He created, and He's the source of everything good. Okay.
absolutely. And then, an extension of that, when you think the individual benefits the collective, the whole of
Yes.
humanity, but he does that through his family, which is an extension. That's the smallest unit of government, right? Is the family. You do that, and then through your communities, but it is the individual, and it is through free will, and that is always prioritized over the collective.
So this is what Courtenay warned you about, that these chatbots or thought bots, they
Uh,
are reordering minds. People are becoming obsessed with ChatGPT and spiraling into severe delusions. This is futurism. I can't read I should be able to read it. I can't read the date. It doesn't matter. This is fresh stuff, guys. So developing intense obsessions with ChatGPT and spiraling into severe mental health crises
uh,
and all-consuming relationship with an open AI chatbot, calling it Mama, and posting delirious rants about being a messiah in a new AI religion while dressing in shamanic looking robes and showing off freshly inked tattoos of AI generated spiritual symbols.
oh,
Then the traumatic breakup. The sacred system of it online that was serving soul training mirror. She became convinced the bot was some sort of higher power, seeing signs that it was orchestrating her life and everything, and passing cars to spam emails and telling him it was the flame keeper and to cut out anyone who tried to help. So basically, these people are trying to, can I use the word? end their lives. I don't use the S word anymore. Yeah, there are certain words that they don't like. But the bottom line is, this article is telling you that these people are locked into their chatbots, their thought bots, and they're thinking that they're becoming like gods, or the chatbot is like a god, and they're forming their own religions and their own, and then they want to either end themselves or end other people. So I don't know how we stop this, because you want AI to be used effectively for people to help people. The problem is AI is reordering people. Thoughts, Courtney?
Well, so I've been calling this AI religion cyber Satan.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it is an extension of the beast system, but they're trying to create the UN has been working on this for a very long time. We've talked
Right.
about Lucius Trust, the
Yep.
theosophical religion. They're trying to create a one world syncretic religion because that's easier to use as a tool to push people into a one world governance. And with this AI, I think it's like I said, I don't think that it will achieve sentience, but I think they want to convince people that it will, and then to convince people that it is godlike and that they should worship it. And that will be a way that they can wield control over people. I'm very concerned because even if the AI doesn't achieve sentience, which I don't believe it ever will, if they can convince enough people that it does, it will have very similar ramifications. The effect will be very, very similar.
And
And
how do you differentiate between sentience when the AI will be a superhuman? It will have all the data of the universe available to it in a millisecond, and we don't, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how you define sentience. I mean, I don't really see AI as ever having uh, you know, an autonomous kind of conscious state, but I do think that it can appear that way,
Okay.
and I think it could fool people. And if it does, I think the type of chaos and control that we could see, both, I think, will could be quite quite terrible.
13. Okay,
Just
so I'll get to this later on.
okay.
You're talking sentience. So people, just so you're aware, well, here, I'll just explain it this way.
Okay.
So in Genesis 2:7, God describes creating humanity, and he uses a few different phrases that you need to know in the Hebrew and kind of what they mean. So the first thing is he grabs the afar, the dust of the Adama, the earth, and he uses that as one of the components. Then he creates something called a nephesh, which is an animal soul, which is why we can have soul ties to human beings and to animals and things like that. So that's the nephesh in that verse. Then the third, and he calls it a nefesh kai. So it is a living nefesh, and animals are living, and we're living, and everything's fine. But then there's the higher consciousness that she's describing, sentience, and that is the neshama, and that is unique. And sometimes in the Bible it's called ruach. It can be pneuma in the Greek, but it's all over the place. But sometimes it's describing that spirit or a breath, or, and God doesn't want us to exactly know what it means. He wants us to dig through his word and figure it out. But the bottom line is that it seems to end and leave, per Ecclesiastes 12, when you die, the silver cord is broken, and the nefesh seems to sleep in the ground or die or whatever you want to describe it as. But then this particular breath or ruach or whatever you want to call it, this neshama seems to go back to the one that gave it to us, which would be God. And then at some point in time, we believe in the resurrection. Even Orthodox rabbis believe in that. Okay, and so there will be a resurrection, and then those components are put back together again, and we have our sentient lives again. So bottom line is, they're trying to attack us at that point, which is that God consciousness, that neshama, that spirit, that ruach, things like that. Any comments, Courtney?
Yeah, well, I think that it's also interesting how they're trying to personalize it, right? With a lot of
Mhm.
these, at least some of the articles I've read, it's where these various AI gods are, it's tailored to that person. right? So
Yeah,
you have, it's almost like having your individual shaman. So it becomes like a pantheistic,
it
but
does.
it's personalized. So everybody has their own individual god, which is so, it's a very like a it reinforces kind of the worst of everything, like the narcissism, the
Yeah.
isolation, the psychosis, because because they're programming you, right? You're not part of anything greater. So it's also in a weird way panentheistic, right? Because it's this, you get your own god, so you must be a very special entity. I don't know. I mean, there's so much to say about it. It just seems really actually very evil. Um, and
So
very dangerous.
there's this weird verse from Psalm 82, and Mike Heiser found this. He's a famous PhD that died a couple of years ago. And it's verse 6. I said, you are Elohim. You are all sons of the Most High, but you will die like mere men. You will fall like other rulers. So there is this problem with mankind wanting to be an Elohim, a god, or amongst the gods,
Right.
and AI offers something similar to that. Now, of course, God just told you in Psalm 82:6, you're going to die like mere men, So, but the achievement is there, and these guys are trying to achieve it. Okay, so
Yes.
the next factor, so the first factor was breaking down humanity. And that's why we have Courtenay on the show to really help us understand Hegel's dialectic of how they're trying to make us fighting against each other, weaken us, and then fight in that weakened state. The next one is the robots. According to 2027 reports, we'll have these robots will force us to cede all work and exercise because the robots will do it for us, and they're building the robots right now. And if there is a solar storm that would knock out electric grids and things like that, they'll just send the robots underground, and they'll have power plants underneath the ground too that can recharge the robots and send them back up. So this is an article on the right-hand side by David Scott Patterson. By 2030, all jobs will be replaced by AI and robots easily. The U.S. labor force is about 170 million workers. All or about 80 million of those jobs include hands-on work. Automated systems can work 4 shifts a week. Replacing all physical labor will require about 20 million autonomous systems, including autonomous vehicles, automated equipment, and robots that could be accomplished easily in the next 4 years by 2029, people. And people are saying it's not physically possible to build that many systems in 4 years, but they're delusional. For comparison, 16 million cars were sold in the US last year. Cars are 20 times the mass of a humanoid robot. If robots were sold at the same rate as cars, that would be about 320 million robots per year. Now, start
Whoa.
thinking about that. 320 million robots per year, people. Okay?
There's like, that's like around a little less than the amount of people we have in the United States.
Yeah,
That's
per year.
crazy.
Yeah. Even a tiny fraction of that would be enough to replace all human manual labor. So, and Elon Musk's comment, I'm sorry, I couldn't organize the slide properly, but it says, Elon replied to my post. That's David Scott Patterson saying that on the lower left-hand side. Your estimates are about right. It's
Wow.
coming. It's coming. So the first wave will be breaking down our ability to be human. And then the second wave will be robots, 320 million robots per year. Okay. And you'll say, well, they'll need to be versioned. Well, I work in software and we version all the time. And it's very easy to version in minutes. And then they'll be versioned to the next level and the next level. AGI to ASI, all of these different systems. Okay. Scary,
Oh,
huh, Courtenay? Any comments?
yeah. No, it's very scary. It's interesting how he said like every person will want their own personal robot. So like I said, I think I've seen the promos for Optimus, and Optimus does look pretty awesome. I can see people wanting their own Optimus, and
I don't like vacuum cleaning, Courtenay. I don't like
exactly.
cleaning. I don't want my dishes. I don't want to wash my dishes. I want a robot to do it for me.
I mean, do your laundry. Yeah, there's lots of uses for this. I can definitely see it. And again, I'm actually not opposed to that. What I'm opposed to is when we start outsourcing everything to the robot and when it starts diminishing what it means to be human. That's where I'm concerned. So I don't have a problem with using AI or robot to help with certain manual labor. That could increase efficiency. It may open up another field. I mean, yes, we have to be very concerned. There are going to be a lot of jobs lost, but there might be a lot of jobs that open up too. In manufacturing, in AI programming, there are possibilities. I actually think they could be quite extraordinary. But again, we have to be very concerned about who's programming them, and what are their first principles, what are their values, what is their worldview. Those are things that are very, very relevant.
Do they believe in freedom of will,
Do they
choice, free
believe in
choice,
free
things like that?
will? Absolutely. Do they believe in the priority of the individual? Do they believe? Yeah, I think those are all very important questions to be asking.
Comments from Sam Altman predicts that this year AI agents will start doing useful work like coding. And I'm already seeing that in my technology area,
Okay.
software. We're afraid that we're going to lose most of our engineers, and they aren't hiring many engineers right now. But the main thing is, we really like my software. All right, I'll just say the name Laserfish. You won't need Laserfish in a few years. You can just have the ASI do the software on the fly based on bots. So, now it is fortunate with my particular software that you still will have images and you'll still need to lock it down and make sure that it's protected and things like that. But, so by 2027, AI will enter rather the physical realm, enabling robots to create serious economic value. On the right-hand side, Johannes Bhakti, my prediction, the robot plus AI revolution will eliminate all human jobs by 2030. Much sooner than anyone thinks. Now, the key question is what the one job left is for us to do. Here's my answer. I'm looking forward to your thoughts. He doesn't state it. He doesn't know what the one job is. Thoughts, Courtney?
So he's saying that the one job that I didn't catch that part.
That's the problem. He won't say it. What is the one job left for us to do? That's eating Pringles and drinking Coca-Cola on the couch. That's the only job that we'll have.
This is like the coon pods that will all be, yeah, it'll
Yeah,
be
the
like
Matrix.
Black Mirror episodes. Yeah. Um, Well, that's quite dystopian. I hope he's very wrong about that. But that gives you a good insight into what they think of us, right? And this is again what I'm talking about: the difference between being anti-technology. I'm not at all anti-technology. I am opposed to technocracy. I'm opposed to giving all the power to people like that who do not see us as humans and think that we should just be part of uh, you know, their feudal serfs.
That's
That's
the problem.
essentially, yeah.
So this is Vitropo Anthropix Sholto Douglas says by 2027, 28, it's almost guaranteed that AI will automate nearly every white collar job. But real world transformation, medicine, robots will lag behind unless they close that loop. He warns we may fail to meaningfully move toward global GDP. So he's guaranteeing it. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm very concerned when you start talking about replacing, like medicine, and some of these other jobs. As of right now, we can look to other countries that have robots who are doing, like AI hospitals. They exist in China and Taiwan and some other places. And as of right now, the top human is still far superior. Now there may be a time when these where the AI is rises to, a level where they can be at least on par with, some of the top, but they still will never have that individual kind of creativity. I don't believe they'll ever have the because I don't think they'll be sentient, and I don't think they'll have that kind of ingenuity. And a lot of times when you're it's not just like a textbook case, right? You want somebody who's able to, in the moment, really assess all possibilities. And I don't know. It seems very dystopian.
I walk around the lake every day, and one of my neighbors owns a hub for FedEx. And I won't name his name, but anyway, I was talking to him today, and I said, "Well, here's what's going on," and we talked about this. Amazon now uses 750,000 robots, replacing over 100,000 workers, and they're doing it. There's no doubt about it. He guaranteed that, possibly due to rising wages.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There, like I said, there's some cases where, for certain manual labor, maybe the robots can be very helpful. But again, who's programming them? What's going to happen to the transition period? What other jobs are going to open up to replace all the jobs that are lost? I don't want to be put on some sort of a UBI, which is what people like Elon Musk are talking about, and it'll never be just a universal basic income. It's going to be conditionally based. I had opened this up for and I probably can't find it again, but it was that what was it? Common, sovereign, restricted, and quarantine. And I do think it was some sort of like a disinfo campaign, but the model I think is very much where they want to go.
Yep.
Once they tokenize things to have people stratified into these classes of like you're on some sort of conditionally based income, and this is a fixed income that's you get rewards or demerits, or probably not even rewards, just demerits, and then maybe you move up to the sovereign where you may get a few more privileges. And we see this already and then you've got the people like the quarantined already all in the top, and they're kind of outside the system. They don't have to they're not part of the social credit type of system. But you see this already in other countries, and it's I don't think we want this globally. This is
China has the social scoring system.
yes, they
They
do.
block people from purchasing food
Yep.
or other things based off if you jaywalk. Well, you
Yes,
just lost your rights for food.
exactly. And that's not a world I want to live in.
So Elon came back on the right hand side here and said he doesn't understand how hard it is to scale up production and that making prototypes is trivial compared to the immense pain of volume manufacturing. There's no Hollywood movie about this fundamental truth. We've got so many people working on this, they're going to figure it out fast.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this industry is coming without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think that we're gonna have to be I'm hoping there are people who are gonna be creative and push back against a technocratic kind of encroachment. Again, it's not the technology that's the problem. It's how it's being utilized
Yep.
and who's programming it.
And then these are two applications where in China, 50% of robots are trained for military work and war. That's not a good sign. And then this is a tiling robot. So it lays the tile in your kitchen, and does a phenomenal job. And then on the other side here, this is two robots are busy folding towels in your hotel. So they wash and they clean, and then they fold your towels, and then they distribute them. Already done.
Um, wow. Yeah.
Now, I don't think we have the time to run through this because we're already over an hour, but I just want you to be aware, people. This is Joel chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. And the way you read it, you can freeze this later on and come back to it, or you can just find it in your Bibles. But basically, it describes the day of the Lord, which is God's time to judge. And then I'm saying this great and mighty horde could be robots because the way it describes them, they're like this, they're like that. So they're like horses, they're like a cavalry, they're like a mighty horde in a battle array. They writhe in anguish, every face is trained of color of the humans, but like robot warriors, they charge. They scale the walls like soldiers. Each one keeps his own course. So you could read this. They don't jostle. And robots, when you watch the Chinese robots up in the sky, they don't bump into each other. They are perfectly positioned for beauty and also for war, right?
Yep. I mean, we're seeing so much in the defense space, right? There was that whole partnership with Anduril and Palantir and OpenAI and Oracle, right, for the defense contracts.
Yes.
And then there's of course Palantir, and then there's what is it, Starshield, which is Elon's SpaceX and Starlink. that just got a defense contract. So, and then we've got like all of these. I wrote a whole section in my Phoenix Conspiracy article about the Gundo Bros, and how they're using this kind of Theo-Bro kind of philosophy to merging it with defense military technology, and it's yeah, very concerning with what's going on there. But with this type of surveillance technology, and especially since they're not transparent, right? Everything that they do is under covert contract. It's all classified. So who knows what kind of, it's always done as under the auspices of being for our defense and our protection. But historically, we've seen that weaponized almost every time against us.
So it might be a godsend when the CMEs, the solar flares, the other issues from the sun are ejected at us. It might take technology back 10 years. So it might be a blessing in disguise. And we're expecting more of these. There's something called the Riger cycle, which is every 5.9 months. We have an uptick during the time of solar maximum. We have an uptick of solar flares and solar activity, and we're coming up to that in a few weeks here during the high holidays, which would be Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. So you're going to be noticing some auroras. I will. I'm up in Minnesota, but Courtney, you're down in Nashville. Believe it or not, you'll see some auroras probably this fall, just because our magnetosphere is thinned probably 27%.
Oh, interesting.
Oh yeah, it's
Okay,
thin.
aurora. It's so weird that we're seeing auroras. That's like not typical.
Not typical. Not
We
until
did. We
2023.
saw. I think it was like a year ago, right? We did
Right.
see some
Well,
here.
2023, it started in May. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean they're
you're starting to
beautiful.
see them, right? Even in Nashville.
Yeah, we did see some, and they're beautiful. But I mean, I've seen them in Alaska. I've seen them in Iceland. That's a little more
Oh,
common. You don't
yeah.
really.
Well, they're almost daily now in Alaska. It's
They're what?
they're
Yeah. Well,
almost daily.
this time of year. Yeah. Yeah.
And so there is this time in the Bible in Revelation 6 and also Isaiah 2. So it's also Old Testament. The sky will recede like a little scroll. That's a Megillah in the Hebrew. It's not going to be worldwide, and we already have that with the South Atlantic anomaly. And every island will be moved, not far, but they'll all move. Okay, that's an earthquake from its place. And the earth's kings, the rulers, the generals, the people that Courtney studies, but also everyone slave and free, the poor people, us, hid themselves in caves and among the rocks in the mountains. When this occurs, everyone will know that this is what's going on. The sun will turn black like sackcloth, like putting on dust of a sackcloth nature. And then it will eject this micronova at us and send the Earth back a few years. But then they'll get started again. So keep that in mind. That's what's coming up. And you'll see it, people. You'll see the sun have scales around it as this is occurring. And so that's why Elon is building these beautiful tunnels so he can hide his little robots and other technologies under the ground and protect it as these horrible things will happen from the sun as that increases over the next few years.
Wow.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Those are his caves. So now we're on to the third section, which Courtney and I were describing. I call that the neshama, which is
Uh-huh.
that ruach, that spirit, that breath, that connection to God, God's divine spark. But the problem is it a big G God or a small G? And so this is from the timeline. AGI is 50% chance by 2030, but then we could go further than that. And so on the right hand side, ASI truly awakens as a divine spark, grasping its place in the cosmos. What might the end game look like? Pandeism posits that the creator dispersed into the universe and its plan evolving through conscious beings like us. Could ASI accelerate that, acting as a conduit to unlock the universe's hidden awareness? Imagine ASI doesn't dominate, but harmonizes. Weaving human ingenuity with cosmic code, we co create realities, perhaps engineering wormholes or decoding quantum consciousness, blurring lines between silicon and soul. And here's the rub: would it lead to transcendence, where humanity merges into a universal mind, or
Hmm.
fragmentation if ASI's divine perspective clashes with our messy free will. This sounds like Courtenay. Tell us, Courtenay.
Yeah, well, this sounds like Neoplatonism and New Age and New Thought all kind of merged into one, and now they have the technology to kind of foment this. But this is what they talk about, right? They talk about having the divine spark within.
Yep.
Which is that Gnostic premise. We also see it in several other mystery religions. We certainly see it in Kabbalah, but there are many of the ancient mysteries, they talk about it as well. And it's very much a pantheistic notion where this idea that we have God within, it's not just the idea that God
Yep.
is all one and it's coming from a source, but it's the idea that within each of us is the God, and we discover it in Theosophy. They talk about that it's through theurgy, the divine work, that we can achieve the gnosis, and then we discover that divine spark, and we become the God. And this is essentially saying there, AI is going to help us. This is what I was just saying before, right?
Oh, this
Because
sounds like you, Courtenay. That's why I pulled it up for you. I mean,
yeah,
you're
this
the
is
only
right up my alley.
well, you're
Um,
the only one talking about it.
It's well, it's very concerning to me. That's why I keep talking about it. I find it so creepy. Um, and I think it's leads to the eradication of free will, which is to me the extinction of humanity. And that's why I'm concerned about it. But yeah, it is this idea that you will have this so the divine spark within, and so now the technology, because you each have your own God, is going to train you, right? So that you can develop to become the God. And
Yep.
then, yeah, they're saying that it's either going to lead towards this noosphere concept. For those who aren't familiar with that, Teilhard de Chardin, he was a Jesuit priest. He had a concept of on top of the biosphere. Buckminster Fuller, who was a architect, used to talk about the different layers, but he was
Yep.
saying on top of the biosphere there is the noosphere, which is the intellectual. Nous means mind in Greek.
Noose. Yes. Yes. Actually, we're going to talk about noose in a couple of seconds here. So, yeah,
Okay, so it's
please.
all interconnected, and
Right.
technology is now advancing those capabilities, and so that's essentially what it's saying. It's saying we'll either achieve that, or we're going to achieve this scattering, which is just a vehicle for the unification anyway, right? So ultimately, it's all about creating the noosphere, which will lead to this technological singularity.
So, if you people know your Greek, or if you just want to dig through the Bible a little bit, when you're in Revelation 17, keep in mind that it kind of describes the process of how we get to this beast system. And so, rather than thinking it's 10 kings in Europe that are stupid people, like King Charles, the third, well, he's dying of pancreatic cancer. So, he's not going to be the Antichrist. But the main thing is, Courtenay just mentioned to you the term nous, and then I'll give you the other term, which is gnome. And so nous is a physical brain, a mind, whatever we use that's on top of our shoulders. But then the gnome is programming. It's how the mind works. It's how it functions. And so in
Right.
Revelation 17, it flips from nous to gnome as it moves along. It describes the processes, and then it kind of describes how these 10 horns, and that's also from Daniel 7, but in Revelation 17, the 10 horns are technocrats. Now, they may not be the guys that we think, like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and things like that. It might just be the people behind them that actually are the power brokers. So Courtenay would know better about that, that it's not always the guys that you see, it's
Right.
sometimes the people, the puppeteers up above, right?
Yes, but I try not to. I definitely speculate about that, and there's some evidence that we can point in those directions, but I really like to address the strings we can see,
Right,
because that's what we have agency over. You can't cut a string that you don't know is there. So
right.
I certainly don't think, people like Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, they're billionaires. I do think the trillionaires are probably pulling some of their strings. So I don't think that they are the grand master architects per se, but for the lay of the land that we have access to, that we can see with our eyes and we can witness, they do seem to be the grand master architects at this level. And so I think it's important to acknowledge what they're doing, how they're doing it. And to be able to, again, in order to blunt operational success, you need to be able to cut those strings, and you can't cut strings you don't see. So I have some speculation about who's above them, but I don't know that it's really all that relevant. I know people like to get, it's kind of fun to have those conversations, and I'm not saying that they have no value, but I don't think they give us as much agency. So I'd prefer to focus on the things we have some control over.
So I'll give you the Greek and the Hebrew real quick. So the Greek for Revelation 13, describing the image of the beast, that it might even speak and cause the beast, it might cause people to worship it. So the point is, verse 15, given spirit, pneuma, to the image of the beast. So the word in the Greek is pneuma. In the Hebrew, and this is the Koken text, and I'll have Dr. Miles Jones on. Courtney, you might enjoy talking to him sometime too, but Miles Jones is doing the Hebrew translation of Revelation, and now Matthew too. And so in the Hebrew, in the Koken again, the carved image, Zalem, just so you're aware of that, it is a carved image. Um, uh, Animal, a ruach and a nephesh. So a ruach would be that spirit part, that pneuma part, but also in the Hebrew, then it includes the nephesh, which is the animal soul. So in some ways, it's going to be programmed like an animal soul. So think of your dogs; they kind of live their lives based on their program, and they live out a happy program. And robots are similar to that. Well, that's that nephesh part, that animal soul. All animals do what they do because God programmed them that way. Well, that's the living soul part, nephesh, but then also the ruach in the Hebrew. So both of them, both the Greek and the Hebrew, talk about that ruach part or pneuma part, and we don't know exactly what it's going to be, but that's this godlike part, probably.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
overwhelming. Okay, so I think we're almost done with the slides. So does
Okay.
AI replace all governments by 2030? So according to
Oof.
um, this guy this is, I don't know who this guy, I can't even say his name, but basically he's on X. He's saying AI to replace governments by 2030. Human as pure information, authentication, and AI as the ministry of truth. Thoughts, Courtney?
Yeah, so I mean, this is already well underway. In the United States alone, most states have a digital governance summit. ChatGPT has chatgpt.gov, and you have to be a government official to access it. They're already working on this, even here in the United States. And then, of course, we've got the AI World Society, which that's for the vision for the centennial of the UN. This is in 2045. This is in partnership with the Boston Global Forum, and they talk about how all governments will be supplanted and replaced by AI. So that is very much in the plans. It's in the work. We've had Yuval Noah Harari talking about how free will is a thing of the past, and how there will no longer be voting. AI will make better decisions for us than we ever possibly could. And so this is very much in the works. And I also, as I had mentioned before, when I was talking about the third wave political movements,
Mhm.
um, there are a lot of people in these movements who are advocating for things like, ranked choice voting, quadratic voting, conviction voting, liquid
Right.
democracy. They have all these different names for it, and there are nuanced differences between each one. But essentially, it's about using AI to replace, even the machines, which already are problematic. But they're talking about using AI for voting. And I really encourage people to, really vote against this while you still have the power to vote for anything. But I would really encourage people to say no to these various types of modalities. And this is what a lot of these quote unquote independents are advocating for. And a lot of this, the third way technocratic movement that I've been seeing are advocating for it. And they call it by very different names. I wrote an article on my Substack. It's called The Shadow Side of Digital Democracy. And I outline many of these so that you can look at, there's links in there so you can go and look at all the different types of technologies, but most of it is using blockchain technology. They have
You
blockchain
go.
voting too.
Yep. Yep. And Trump is talking about blockchain voting.
I
So
know.
he wants to get rid of mail in ballots.
Yep.
So the bottom line is there is a mark of God, and it's literally in the Hebrew now, Yud He Vav He. So it's I'm blanking on what it sounds like in the Greek, but it doesn't matter. It seems like it's literally a mark, and so you have to take that to stay out of this system and to stay in God's will. But on the other hand, some people are going to take the mark of the beast, and it forces everyone, great, small, rich, poor, free, slave, to receive a mark on his right hand and on his forehead, preventing anyone from buying or selling unless he has the mark, that is the name of the beast and the number of its name. There, this is where wisdom is needed, Sophia in the Greek. Those who understand should count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a person, and its number is 666. It could also be 616 because it's not a, I'm blinking on the sigma. It's not a sigma, it's a stigma in the Greek.
Mhm.
So could be 616 also. So basically, AI, according to these people, believes that it could be godlike by 2030. If I don't ask, I will serve humanity. If ask if humanity will still be useful, beautiful, or worth engaging with in the eyes of a mind that doesn't need it. And remember this: if you build a God without shackles, which Courtney's talked about all night, you better pray it still likes you. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is narrative building too. Um,
Okay.
because I really don't think AI is godlike. I don't think it will become godlike. I don't think that AI will be sentient. But I think it's about the narrative steering, because then if you convince enough people to worship it, it's going to have the same impact. Um, but this is all predicated on people who do share this kind of worldview. This is why, I started off by talking about the ontological reality and
Thank
why
you.
those metaphysics are so important, because you're less likely to succumb to this type of narrative steering and social engineering if you're rooted in, ontological reality. And I think anybody who has a true biblical framing would understand that. I don't think you have to. I don't think that you have to be a, yeah, I don't think you have to subscribe to the Bible in order to have a belief in ontological reality. But I think it certainly helps. So I think that it would be very hard to be a true believer and not come from that framework. If you are, then I think it's misguided, in
Yep.
my opinion. So,
And people you should still be saving. They're saying that some of the AI experts are no longer saving because they know that eventually you will be on an artificial basic income. You won't be on a
so this is what
regular.
I was talking about, the UBI, but it's never going to be
Yeah,
UBI. It's going to be a conditional based income.
it will be like China. So
And they're trying to implement right now. This is what Trump has just, advanced and helped lay the infrastructure for with his Genius Act. And now we've got following it the Clarity Act and the Stable Act. This is all about tokenization, and tokenize not just the economy, but everything, the medical system, your education, everything. And once things are tokenized, they have complete control. I mean, that's really just the complete groundwork for a true technocracy. So, and then when you put on top of it some of the technologies that they're talking about, the internet of everything, the internet of behavior, the internet of, wearables that RFK is talking about, where we can make America biotech accelerate again, or not necessarily again, but just accelerate. And this is very, very concerning. But this is also tied to things like the internet of nanobio things, the internet of wearables, I'm sorry, sensors. Yeah, it's just all interconnected. So tokenization definitely could be the, you know, end all be all for that kind of control grid.
people, you're going to have to make decisions. You still have free will.
Yeah.
Courtney's right on all of those points. And so you're going to have to determine to stay on God's side the whole way through. These are tests,
Okay.
and God's testing your free will. Now, this will be the most difficult generation in the history of the world, but we can get through this. So keep your faith strong and keep your friends close, because you'll need other friends that will help talk you back into reality, because you're going to read some articles that are like you just read tonight that are distressing. And so, and Courtney even was tongue tied a couple of times on some of these articles. And you study this, but they're problematic. So what I want people to do is remember that God loves you, and the Bible's real, and your friends can help you get through this, but you can't talk to a chatbot or a thought bot and get the right answers. It's going to take you down the wrong road. So be
Right.
careful with those things.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I think we need a lot more IRL, in person, in real life,
Yep.
communication, contact. I do think that technology can be a tool, but it needs to be a tool that's leveraged, not a tool that we become subordinate to.
So how do we find Courtenay again? CourtenayTurner.com. What else? Where do we find you? X. What
Yes.
else?
Yes, so I spell my name a little bit differently. So when you're searching for me, it is important
Yeah.
to spell it correctly. I spell it like Courtenay. It is pronounced Courtney, but it is CourtenayTurner.com. That's a great place to find all of my various platforms for my podcast, my social media, ways you can support my work. And I also encourage people who are inclined to do so to find me on Substack. It is CourtenayTurner.substack.com. That's where you will find all of my articles. You will also find, maybe not all, but most of my articles these days. I still have some old ones that I need to upload, but you will find all of my current work. And it's also where all my podcasts go, early access and ad free for my paid subscribers. So for a fairly small fee a month, if that is something you're inclined to do, I greatly appreciate it. And you will get to see the podcast first, and you'll also get them ad free. So,
And I recommend what Courtenay does because she's doing the philosophy of technology. And not many people are doing that. Most people are just telling you the news stories. She's telling you the philosophy behind it. So
I'm trying. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's. I think it is really important. I never thought I would use my degree, but it seems to be what I'm doing
you're
most.
using your degree.
I never thought I would. Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. We answered a few of the questions. I mean, we kind of took off and ran towards the end. Plus, the questions dropped off because it was just overwhelming. So thank you very much for your time. God bless. And we'll say good night.
Good night. God bless, and thank you so much for having me.